Hello BookTube, it's an exciting moment. I'm doing my very first tag video where I was tagged by someone to do the video. I was tagged by Rashmika from Rashmika Likes Books, which I'll link down below, and she tagged me to do the Muffin Tag, which was originally created by Josh of Literary Gladiators, and I'll link the original video down below. So the Muffin Tag is a series of questions inspired by muffins. And the first question is a blueberry. If someone said literature, who's the first writer that comes to mind? So this is a hard question to answer because I've seen this tag video already a couple of times, so I'm no longer sure that this was the first person that comes to mind if I were to be asked that. But I would go with Shakespeare, which I think more people have said. Yeah, he's just ubiquitously associated with literature. He's taught a lot in schools. People continuously harp on about how wonderful he is and the greatest playwright, the bard, and blah blah. Not entirely undeserved. But yeah, that's why it comes to mind. I kind of jokingly remarked on Gros's video, Gros from A Journey Through Books, when she also mentioned Shakespeare, that yeah, his propagandist did a good job. And that's not entirely untrue. I read a recent thread on the Ask Historians subreddit, which was really interesting about kind of the efforts that went into promoting Shakespeare. I mean, he was popular in his day, of course. His popularity kind of declined for a while, and then I think it was in the 18th century, about in the 18th century, I think, there were a bunch of people who kind of resurrected him and really started promoting him, and that's what made him rise to the prominence he is now. And I think it's very interesting to kind of look into that, because you know, all these great writers, yes, their writing was great, but at least part of the reason they have the status they have now is because, you know, people championed them afterwards. It's also quite interesting if you ever find out to read up, for example, about the work that Tolkien put in to promote Beowulf as actually being recognized as worthwhile literature. But yeah, I'll try and find that Ask Historians Reddit thread and link it down below. Then, question number 2. A work of British literature that became easier to understand when discussed. Again, hard question to answer for me, and that's because I haven't really had that kind of discussion of literature since school. Just because I haven't really had people to discuss literature in that way with. So then I also don't really, because I don't have those discussions, I can't really think of a book that really became easier for me to understand when I discussed it with someone. So I could go with Shakespeare again. I mean, definitely discussing him in school with a teacher who kind of understood what the play was about, and learning about him in that way helped to understand him. Since then, yeah, don't really have anyone else to pick. Number 3. Corn, a book that is great to take on the go and read at any time. I'm going to go with Rashmika on this one, whatever I'm reading. I don't have books that are specifically for taking with me on the go, and I'm not too picky as long as it's not physically enormously inconvenient to take the book with me. I will just take whatever I'm reading now. I mean, if I'm on the go, I do always try and take a book with me. So my daily commute is by bicycle, which cycling and reading is not something I recommend. So then don't take a book, but you know, if I'm taking any form of public transport or going anywhere where I anticipate I might have to wait, like a dentist or a doctor or whatever, I will take a book with me, or flying or whatever. And just to give you an example, the first couple of weeks I was here, I didn't have a bicycle yet, so I was commuting by bus, and I took this book with me, the science fiction short story anthology. You can see this is quite a chunky book, so this is how far I'll go before a book becomes physically inconvenient to take with me. But yeah, this fits in my backpack, so I took it with me. So whatever I'm reading is good to take with me on the go, so no particular preference for, or no ideas for books that would be great to take on the go. And yeah, whatever I'm reading, I'll read at any time. Sometimes I'm reading something light, sometimes I'm reading something heavy, sometimes I'm reading, you know, literary, something that's heavy because it's literary fiction, sometimes I'll read something that's heavy because it's historical non-fiction, which can be a bit dry at times. but you know, if it's what I'm reading, it's what I'm reading and taking with me on the go. Number 4, chocolate chip. A writer you feel was or has been able to write during all aspects of their lives. You might notice a theme here, but I found this a hard question to answer. I have some authors where I have like multiple works of theirs which were written over a long span of time, but I haven't really thought about it in the context of the author's lives. So I mean, I could say, well, Terry Pratchett, because I have nearly all of his books and they were written over a span of 25 to 30 years, and in the beginning he was healthy, and at the end, you know, he knew he had the start of Alzheimer's and his mind was declining. But I feel that's maybe a bit cliche answer, and yeah, I don't really know that much about authors' lives and how it connects to certain works to really judge, like, okay, this author could write when they were happy and when they were sad and when they were healthy and when they were sick and when they were young and when they were old. So yeah, so maybe Terry Pratchett, because I enjoyed all of his books. Maybe Dickens. I read David Copperfield, which I think was one of his earlier books, and it's also partially biographical. And I've read Bleak House, which, if I'm not mistaken, was his last novel. Sorry. And I enjoy both of them. So, but yeah, I'm not quite sure how different his life circumstances were, other than that he was younger and older when he read those books. Number 5, oatmeal raisin. A bookish trait you feel is just not necessary. I mean, oatmeal raisin cookies are quite nice. I don't know about oatmeal raisin muffins, so maybe they are necessary, I don't know. But yeah, bookish traits I feel are not necessary is Me Too literature, I would call it. And Me Too literature is when a certain bestseller comes out with particular traits in terms of theme or plot elements, and then all of a sudden all these other books that are similar thematically also get published. So when the Da Vinci Code came out, all of a sudden there were a whole bunch of other thrillers based around religious and art historical conspiracy theories. After Twilight we get a whole bunch of teenage romance novels featuring vampires or other supernatural creatures in similar veins. And you just like, I mean, I'm guessing this is a case of not that the authors of those Me Too novels thought, oh, I also need to write a book about this. I mean, I'm hoping that they genuinely wanted to write a story about that because it was a topic they found interesting and not just because they thought it would sell. But I definitely do suspect that the publishers who selected whether to accept or reject those manuscripts thought, we've just got a manuscript here about another religious conspiracy thriller, and those are in these days, so let's publish it. And it's you know, it's not terrible, so let's go for it. And you just think, yeah, can't you publish something that's, you know, good on its own merits, and that's not just trying to be the next bestseller because you've focus group identified that people like this particular plot element. I mean, on the other hand, it's not really a big deal because, you know, I go to the bookshop, I see the books on display, I think, oh, Me Too literature, and I walk on to the next shelf, so whatever. But in terms of things that I feel are not necessary, Me Too literature. Brown, number 6. What kind of reading material do you find you constantly force yourself through? For work, I have to read a lot of scientific papers, journal articles, and for various reasons those tend to be very dry. That can be a struggle to get through them. I mean, you know, math is math, and it's not always gripping reading, and there's not much you can do about that, and you know, you have to take some time to let it sink in. Also, some reviewers don't like it if you inject too much of your own style into things. They want things to be very cut and dry because otherwise it's not scientific enough or something. And there's also people for whom English is not their first language, so they kind of rely on stock phrases to express their ideas. And all of that makes it kind of tough going. And for a long time people were taught that you have to use only passive voice when writing scientific papers because you have to kind of remove yourself from the paper because it's supposed to be science and objective. Anyway, all of that makes it very dry reading, even when the paper itself has lots of interesting stuff going on, you know. So that can be a struggle. But in terms of kind of for fun reading, nothing. I mean, I'm reading for fun, like I just said, so why read something that I would have to force myself through? There are books from time to time that I pick up, not necessarily because I really think I'll enjoy them, but because I kind of want to know what the fuss is about, even if I anticipate maybe my enjoyment will be a bit less than a book I would pick up for other reasons. So there was recently, for example, Love in the Time of Cholera by Garcia Marquez. Also Gravity's Rainbow by Thomas Pynchon, which I know, you know, highly regarded, influential books. So I kind of wanted to read them just to, not to be able to say that I read them, but to be able to understand the discussions around them and the influence they've had on other people. And both of those were books that I didn't really enjoy that much. On the other hand, it wasn't ever really that I really had to force myself to get through them. It was more like, yeah, nah, I'm not feeling this, but let's kind of just see, you know, how it ends, and then I've read the whole book and I can at least talk about it. But yeah, it's not really good to the level of actually having to force myself. I think if I really did have to force myself through it, then I'd ask, why am I even still reading this, and just DNF. Number 7, Cranberry Orange. Which 2 characters from different works would you like to see in one? Well, first of all, I'm not sure if I'd like to see cranberry and orange in my muffin, but you know, maybe it's a nice flavour. I've never tried. And I don't really think about characters in this way. I tend to kind of see characters within their work, and I don't really think about them divorced from the rest of the story all that much. And so I don't really have an answer for this. Yeah, I can't really think of 2 characters that how we should put them together and that would make for a great story, because yeah, they are already in their own story, and they're kind of, to me, they are connected to that story. So I don't think about, oh, if I pluck this character out from this story and pluck that character out from that one and put them together, that would be great. So yeah, sorry, but I hope you found that answering at least informative about me, even if it's not answering the question as such. Number 8, Coffee Cake. If you could see any poet, dead or alive, recite poetry at your cafe, which one would it be? I was probably going to go with T.S. Eliot, and I'd like to hear him recite the love story of J. Alfred Prufrock. I quite like the poem, and there's lots of kind of ambiguities and subtleties in there. And it'd be interesting to kind of hear Eliot recite the poem, and then hear maybe his interpretation of it. Not that that's the only possible interpretation, but that would be interesting. Instead of a poet, dead or alive, I would also settle for I would also gladly go to see Sean Persaud, of an actor of various YouTube channel fames. And one of the things he appears in is Yulin Kang's I Didn't Write This series. I'll link the playlist down below, wherein she makes short film adaptations of various poems and scenes from literature. It's similar to what Shaza of Hooked on Books recently did the other day. If you haven't seen that video, definitely go check it out below. She made an awesome, amazing video, also where she kind of sets, I would almost say sets poetry to video. And Yulin Kang did the same. Unfortunately, she stopped making those videos for various reasons, but in Yulin Kang's video, Sean Persaud does a whole bunch of the poetry recitings, and I really liked his reciting, so I would definitely go watch him live as well, if he came to my local cafe to recite poetry. Then number 9, Cruffin, croissant muffin. Talk about things that are just not necessary. Also, how would that even work? But anyway, a great short work of French literature. Well, this is a very easy pick. because I have not read much French literature, and I've only read one work of French literature which classifies as short. I will give you 3 seconds to guess which one that is. And if you guessed The Little Prince by Antoine de Saint-Exupéry, then that was correct. I have not even read it in French, I've only read it in English. I really should try and read it in French sometime, see if my senior school French holds up or not. But yeah, that's the short French work I have picked, so I guess I'll pick that one. Although then it kind of doesn't say anything about other than it just should be a great short work French literature. It doesn't say I have to have read it. On my TBR I do have The Outsider by Camus, which is also short and French, and generally regarded as great, so maybe once I've read this one I'll have 2 options to pick from, and I might change my pick. But for now, Le Petit Prince, the Little Prince, is my pick for that question. Number 10, Muffin Top, a work that would be better abridged. Getting back to the theme, I found this a hard question to answer, and that's because I tend to not think about books in that way. That is to say, I don't usually think about what would improve a book. I mean, I definitely have opinions, and I might think, oh, this book was too long, or that sections had dragged on too long. But I kind of stopped my thought there. It's just like, well, I liked this book, or I didn't like it, and these were the reasons, and you know, that's it. Not my job to fix the book. I'm not your editor. I've read it, and I have my opinion now, and you know, I'm not aspiring to be a fiction writer, so I don't think about what I would have done differently or how it could have been done differently. So because of that, you know, I'm trying to think which books I think have bits of dragged on too long, and then kind of the corollary to that, or the implication of that, is they should have been abridged. And the book that really came most to mind is De Ontdekking van de Hemel, or The Discovery of Heaven by Harry Mulisch, which I reviewed a while ago. And that had quite a few digressions and tangents that didn't really seem to be adding all much to the story. I didn't mind them, but I think you could argue that the story would have been better if some of that had been cut out. On the other hand, there isn't much to the plot as such, so Discovery of Heaven is really kind of more of an ideas novel, where it's just constantly throwing up things for you to think about, rather than really having a gripping story. So if you cut out the things to think about because they're not moving the story along, I don't know if you would be left with much. But purely plot and story-wise, it could do with some abridging. Then number 11, what is your favorite muffin? I'm going to be very boring. Blueberry and or let's not and, blueberry or chocolates. And number 12, let's go to Drury Lane. Who do you tag? I think lots of people have already done this tag, and I don't have that many subscribers yet. But for now I will tag Mark from Words Everywhere and Leah from Hide and Seek, who neither of them I think have done this tag yet. So Leah and Mark, if you are so inclined, please feel free to do this tag and consider yourself tagged. And the rest of you, do please go check out their channels. I'll link them down below. Mark has founded the BookTube Poetry Club and also does lovely poetry readings from time to time, as well as the discussions in the Poetry Club and various other book discussions as well. Recently discussed Meg, which is kind of like Jaws but then even bigger. Definitely go check out his review of that book. It was a lot of fun. Yeah, Leah from Hide and Seek introduces us a lot to lovely Australian literature, gives us great views of the Australian outback and her countryside, and goes on awesome buddy reads. So definitely go check her out as well. And thanks for watching. I don't know about whether I'll manage to put out a video next week, because next week is the Imperial Festival, when my place of work, Imperial College, will throw open its doors to the general public, and you can come along and find out about things I do there, and my colleagues do. So if you are in London, do come and check that out. I'll see if I can find a link to the program and put it down below. I'm not entirely sure what's going on, I just have a rough idea what I'll be doing, but I think there's all kinds of cool activities that you can go and see. I think you can go and see various of our labs and that. You can come talk to real life scientists like me and all my colleagues and find out what we do all day and whether it's true that we wear lab coats all the time or not, like in the movies. Yeah, so I'll leave a link to come along and I'll see if I can put out a video or not, and otherwise see you in 2 weeks or so. Thanks for watching and see you soon. Bye bye.